The Florida Prize for 2020 has had to be postponed due to the coronavirus pandemic. In anticipation of the exhibition, which will be next summer in 2021, we'll be visiting with each of the artists and introducing them and talking a little bit about their work. I'm Hansen Mulford, the curator at the Orlando Museum of Art.
And I'm Coralie Claeysen-Gleyzon, associate curator at the Orlando Museum of Art.
We're here today with Robert Rivers.
Hi, Robert.
Hello.
So, Robert, you've been a professor at University of Central Florida since 1980, I believe, right?
Right. Yeah. I generally just taught etching, and this was, that was a sore point for some people, that I didn't explore lithography and silkscreen and woodcut. I was an etcher. That's all I did. So that's all I taught. We had a really good program. We put a lot of kids in graduate school with it. Mm-hmm. And now I mainly focus on drawing. It's my love, I guess.
You seem to be, fundamentally, you seem to be a draftsman, and that's, whether you're working with print media or other things, and you do use paints and other things, but I think the drawing is really at the core of all the work you seem to be producing.
When I use paint, the majority of the time I wipe my paintings up like I'm wiping up an etching plate. I squirt paint out on it and take rags and wipe it into it. And I sometimes will use the brush and come back and paint, but the majority of it's building up layers on layers of paint and gloss. And some of these things weigh a ton when you pick them up, because they're so thick. Some of them I have 15 layers on top of it. But then I can draw back on top of that too.
A lot of artists move from drawing to painting and back again. What is it about drawing that holds you?
Well, I think I started doing it when I was 5. It was just a natural instinct. And I remember sitting at Von Braun's desk and drawing, and him being very enthusiastic about it. And my father just sort of saying, oh, that's nice, but I've always loved to draw. My father used to complain that I wish I could pick a phone book up and not have drawings all over the phone book. Or in class, I'd be sitting there drawing the whole time. In faculty meetings, I draw. I remember it annoyed one dean terrifically that I sat over there and drew while he was talking and stuff. And now they've discovered that if you are drawing, you actually remember more in a meeting than someone taking notes. And so it's just been this thing that is just totally fascinating. It's just something I've always done. When I first got my first teaching job, University of Wisconsin Superior, I walked into the chair's office and he said, okay, you're going to be teaching this printmaking course, and here you're going to have to teach a basic design course. And by the way, they did not tell me this before, you've got to teach survey art history. And I was like, horrified. This was like 2 weeks before school started. It was the hardest I had ever worked in school, was teaching those art history classes. But it was one of the best things that ever happened to me. It was like a concentration of learning how to teach, learning how to stand up and lecture to these students, giving me so many different sources that I had always just sort of cherry-picked what I was interested in. All of a sudden, I was seeing things that I had just kind of blown off. And after reading about them and doing some research on them, they became important stuff in my work too. And I think that was the real reason that a lot of the art history stuff started really taking a prominent role in my work.
It seems that you've been learning for years and you're still learning. And that at one point there was a tragic event that happened in your life. Everything, all these images, all that knowledge of art history, everything you've learned and taught is suddenly pouring out of you on a gigantic, monumental artwork.
Right. We lost Thomas, my nephew, in Afghanistan, and it was a devastating thing for our family. I went home that day when I found out and did the first drawing. The earlier drawings, some of them that are included in the Promised Land, have a lot of nudity in it, male and female. All of a sudden, the image became a white t-shirt, buzz cut, pair of just regular fatigue pants, and army boots. They could be Army, they could be Marines, they could be Navy, they could be British, they could be French, they could be German, they could be South America, just the way soldiers lounge around. I didn't want to have any weapons. I think the only weapons that appear in these things are the missiles that are almost look like models that were probably go back to what I say in my dad's thing, sort of a homage to that. And then that silly Mad Magazine triad thing that I used to designate a bomb because it's so senseless. And meanwhile, these soldiers are generally supporting each other, helping each other up, contemplating some figures from art histories, figures from Greek myth. All of a sudden, there's animals that come into it again, just like in the hospital prints. Like one of my first prints that I did that kind of got the attention of the school was a barbecue in a hospital, and it was these nurses barbecuing goats in a hospital. And it, crazy as it sounds, the print's even crazier. I got a lot of attention from faculty, and they started giving me a lot of advice and started helping me change and develop the process. And the ironic thing is when I left the University of Georgia, that's the print they bought for the permanent collection, was that very first print. And so these things, this idea, and I get choked up talking about this, I apologize. It's really about my brother.
So these are the works that we were planning to show in the Florida Prize exhibition. Fairly recent series of very, very large scale drawings that you've been doing. It's a drawing that goes on for over 200 feet, I believe.
It's right now 300 feet. It's the size of a football field. If you laid it out on a football field, it would go from one end zone to the other now. The most I've seen at one time together is what we did when we laid it out on the floor. I put 70 feet up in the gallery the very first time I hung it last year, and had no clue what it was going to look like, and actually was quite pleased with it. This is actually part that was hung in the faculty show. And you can sort of see there's these, I call them a thicket, that sort of breaks some of the dream cycle. And then the images to the right, you can see the thing that I was talking about, the sort of almost like a sculptural head. It's a sort of a surreal, cartoony head. And next to that is this bizarre skull with parts of the skin still on it and a bird sitting on it. And it becomes almost like Henry Moore's elephant skull etchings, where the jawbone and stuff comes out, and it's sort of a surreal skull there. And then these animals that sort of appeared, and I did 22-inch by 30-inch drawings, and I had over 450 of those. It always urged me to say, Robert, you need to make these things big. And I'd always kind of, I'm not going to do it, just being stubborn. And all of a sudden, it didn't seem so big to me, and the task didn't seem so Herculean, Again, you can go back to some of the earliest etchings, even the Cortona print that I did in '76, which is a sort of descent from the cross image that meant so much to me the first time I went to Italy and was able to see where they have the Christ figures is standing, just sagging. It's very, very abstract. It's unfinished at all. The face is just like a raw stone. And then there's highly polished arm of John the Baptist supporting the figure. And that really fascinated me, that things that were left undone or things that were left broken seemed to fascinate me more than these kind of polished, completed things. So one time you'll see a sculpture that is more realistic than the figure that's actually looking at the sculpture. There's the big shark. Y'all saw that one. That was the one on the wall. And the only time it was there was hanging in the living room. I don't think my wife appreciated it, that much. To have a big shark with legs and arms sticking out of its mouth and a huge anaconda, and you can sort of see the cartoony thing with a figure that has a kind of a face that's kind of dissolved, and there's a arm across the tail of the shark. And you can sort of see that old cartoony thing where they used to draw a skeleton of a fish, and it looks like the arm's tattooed, and it's got this sort of cartoon tattoo. Or it could be the shark has a chunk taken out of it, and you're seeing that cartoon thing. So it's that illusion. of it being a tattoo or being this cartoon. Then here you see the monkey and the cat, sort of a fable, you would think. And on top of it, you see that again, this sort of invented skull, this sort of pig skull sitting on top of the boulder beside them. And, I'd almost completed the entire drawing, and I saw this dog appear underneath the hands of the man. But that's like, I think I showed you working on drawing the other night, and I said, oh, here's the devil head appear. And then the devil head may disappear, because I'm going with the stains, and I'm going with the drips, and something will come out, and I'll pull that out that I had no idea. I had no preset plan of this drawing. Somewhere like when I used to start those prints by drawing eye, nose, and mouth, now I'm actually being able to be spontaneous, like all that drapery and everything. Mm-hmm. I had no idea that was going to be in there. And I wanted some sort of soft respite type thing to counter all that storm, and then sort of stylized water. And of course, the woman has two faces if you get up really close. It's like the water's refracting the face, and she's putting her face in and out of the water. And that's a typical Gauguin figure, the woman drinking like that. I was fascinated by Gauguin's work. And I must admit, when I was in school, I found it a little too cutesy for me. And then I think I matured enough to go, wow, you big dumb idiot. This stuff is amazing.
Well, the whole piece really has a feeling of a journey through the underworld.
I think that is high praise. I think Steve Lotz and Alan Collier would applaud that.
Thank you for talking with us.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Robert.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys. Thank you. And see you soon, I hope.